first question is, why do I think that some patients with Parkinson's cope better than others? I think it all is related to your coping skills in other areas of your life. If you're able to deal with stressors in your life in other areas, well, you should be able to deal with this one. Maybe not as well, because this is a very debilitating, progressive, incurable disease, as we all well know. I have one sibling, my sister Lisa. Out of the two of us, we have often said in our family that it's probably better that I have it as opposed to her, if anybody had to get it. Because I tend to deal well with sicknesses and things better than she does. I have dealt with it fairly well up until recently, and when it's begun to affect my speech, which is a little bit aggravating and annoying for me. But I do think that the coping skills of a person is as much an individualized thing as our symptoms are, actually. So I think people deal with things differently, and I think this is no exception. Second question is, what is a common misconception of Parkinson's disease? I think the biggest one there is the age at which it's being diagnosed. Most people tend to think of Parkinson's patients as elderly patients. And while there are a lot of elderly patients that have Parkinson's, the prevalence has been increasing more and more over the years in the 40 and under population. Michael J. Fox has personified that, actually. But there are more and more people being diagnosed every day that are under 30, actually. I was 42 when I was diagnosed. I'm 55 now, which means I've had it for a little over 12 years. I think that's the most common misconception, is the age. I think with the diagnosis of Michael J. Fox at the age of 29, as unfortunate as that was, provides Parkinson's disease with a significant boost in awareness. It also has provided the research with millions of dollars annually for the development for a cure. Also, I think that with the advent of social media such as Facebook and Twitter and the internet, has provided patients and their family members and their caregivers with the much needed support and the information that they so sorely need. Also, the National Parkinson's Foundation puts on a Moving Day event every year throughout the United States. I actually participated in the one last year and will participate again this year. It's actually a walk, and then it's a day filled with activities and information as well. They do a great job in putting out the awareness and also in fundraising. Fourth question is whether I think Parkinson's is a physical or a mental challenge. It's both, actually. Physically, for me, it's more of a challenge because I have a full-time job that I work still as a registered nurse and a post-op open heart unit in a busy hospital. My biggest physical challenge right now is my speech, which is getting worse every day. It's very important for me to be understood well by my patients as well as the physicians where I work. I also have some problems with sleep at night, which all Parkinson's patients who do tend to experience at some time or another. And this all culminates into what can be a very, very long 12-hour shift. Another thing, though, the emotional thing, I think it comes into play more for me, which I don't have some of the emotional problems, like the depression, the bipolarism that some of the patients do have. I don't so much have that as I have the mental thing comes into play for me, is because I have to think every time I open my mouth about what I'm going to say to make sure that I can be understood. And you shouldn't have to do that. Nobody should have to think about what they're going to say. It should just be a natural reaction, but it's not. I also have to think every time I take a step, is my foot twisted in? Is my balance on good? And those things are things that most people just take for granted. Parkinson's patients can't do that because, So far as physically, I fall down sometimes. I stumble and I look like I'm drunk when I'm not. I have actually had people ask me that, even at work. Am I drunk? No, I'm not drunk. I have Parkinson's, and it makes me look that way. But I can't help it any more than I can help the way I talk. It's very annoying. It's very aggravating. People have to repeatedly say to me, "What did you say?" I understand I can't be. It's hard for me to be understood. I try very, very hard with it, but this is my biggest challenge for me is my speech. Final question is, what is the unexpected consequences of Parkinson's that I have found? And so far, the only unexpected thing I have found so far is the progression of my symptoms has been much faster than what I had hoped or had anticipated. And also, I think the consequence I'm going to face in the future is going to be the eventual having to take disability. Because I'm 55 years old and I have planned to work until I was 65. I just take a regular normal retirement, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. But we'll see. I'm going to try to work as long as I can. And the hospital where I work is very, very supportive, and so are my coworkers. We do very well together. So I have good support systems in place there and at home as well. And I know that my speech is my biggest problem, like I said before, but I'm going to take some more speech therapy later in the summer this year. I know if I really think about it and I concentrate and I talk slower and I speak louder, it's easier to be understood. But it's very hard to do that and have to think every time I have to say a word. But anyway, I think that's going to be my biggest problem with the whole thing, is just having to take disability. Because I don't want to be a disabled person. I don't want to be defined by this disease. I don't want to be consumed by this disease. And I'm not going to be consumed, nor am I going to be defined, nor am I going to be this disease ever. I will never be this disease. But anyway, I think that's going to be my biggest challenge. It's going to be just having to take early disability. As a wrap up to this interview, I want to thank Kendall for asking me to do this. I never, ever thought I would ever say yes, but as many of you know that have dealt with him, you know he has a way of getting his own way a lot of times, as he did this time. But anyway, I do appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this. I told him no a few weeks ago because of my speech and the problems I have with talking clearly, but I'm glad I was able to do it today. I'm also not a typical PD patient, if there is such a thing as a typical PD patient, and that I do still work full time. I know I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. I do appreciate my job, appreciate my hospital, my co-workers very much. I've also had DBS 3 times already, and I'm anticipating a 4th one in my future, probably within the next year or so, which may still be atypical too, because most people do not have 4 DBSs, but those have been lifesavers for me. Anybody that is even thinking about it, I would encourage you to follow it, because it really has been, it's been wonderful every time. It's really not that bad of a surgery either. But anyway, so thanks to Kendall for letting me do this, and to each of you, I wish you much success.